Hey guys, I want to share with you a very useful method that I have learned from a coaching program that would help you to climb from a really dark and negative state of mind into a positive, constructive, and expansive state of mind, one step at a time. It comes from a coaching program that I have taken, and I have shared this knowledge with my clients, and I've used it on myself, and I find it to be very practical and useful to learn. So let's talk about it. It consists of 7 levels, and these 7 levels correspond with 7 levels of thinking, all the way from a very dark and vulnerable state of mind into a highly constructive, expansive, high-level thinking. So let's start with the first level. The first level is when we feel like we are the victim. We feel extremely vulnerable. We feel like we are passive in our lives and everything is happening to us and we have no control over anything. I'm sure we all have felt this way before, and it's a common state of mind to be in. I've been in this state of mind. I've been depressed for 2 years, and it's been something that has been really difficult to me, and this state of mind was something that had predominated for me during that time. And the important thing to do is, rather than try to push your vulnerability out and try to jump into a higher state of mind, what you do is that it's very important for us to be able to process that level, to process our vulnerability. A key takeaway from this coaching program is that every level has its purpose and reason for being. And in order to go up a level, you have to process the level below it. So if you don't get in touch with your vulnerability, you're not going to be able to overcome this level. So at this level, we feel like we are the losers. We feel like nothing is going right in life and we have no options. And when we're in a really stressed state of mind, it's really hard to think positively and constructively. The key thing to do here is to be able to really process how you're feeling, get in touch with your emotions. And when you do so, what you do is that you validate how you feel. And when you're able to be in touch with your emotions and process the emotions, it's easier to then move on to the next level. There's actually a benefit to being at this level of being the victim. When we are in a really dark place and we are having a lot of emotions, it's actually very important for us to be able to let ourselves feel the way that we're feeling. And when we are in this lower energetic state, we're not expending our energy in a way that is exhausting for us. We need to take a break from the world and be able to become more in touch with ourselves. And also when we're in this vulnerable state, it's also a call to others for help. These people could see us be in this state of vulnerability and helplessness, and they may come to support us. Of course, there are drawbacks to being in this state as well, because if we stay the victim for a very long time, then we're not doing anything that's constructive or useful in our lives. It becomes easy to get stuck in a state. But the way out of the state is through, not by trying to bypass the state. And the first thing that's important to do is to be able to process our emotions and vulnerability and see where we're coming from. Now let's go to the second level. The second level is when we are the fighter. We're filled with passion and energy to try to make a difference in our lives. And often this state, level 2, is centered around the emotion of anger. When we feel anger, it's a call to take some sort of action in our lives. It's a step up from level 1, because level 1, we feel like the victim. We feel like we are hopeless. But level 2, we feel like there's something that we could do. And we pour this passion into a state of anger, which is focused on conflict and antagonism. We might have a very me versus the world vibe or energy. Now, this level of energy certainly has its place because it's an energy that is motivating and energizing in the moment. And often when we feel anger, it's coming from a place of feeling that there is something that is not right or just. Often when we feel like we're motivated to act is when we feel like there is some sort of injustice or something is not right by us. For instance, something is causing us to feel like the victim and we have to do something about it. Now, when we're in the state of level 2, we might think in terms of right versus wrong, and we might feel like we need to prove ourselves right. However, this could be very limiting because when we get into this state of mind, we could think really black and white and we can't see the full list of options available before us. We're not thinking from a higher state of mind. One thing about this state is, yes, it is motivating, but only for the short run. We could easily burn ourselves out with this energy, and it could also motivate other people in a short run if you are a leader that uses this energy, but it also burns other people out. They may be driven by fear of you, but then they want to be able to get away from you. There's a lot of leaders who operate using level 2 energy. According to this model, every level has its value and purpose. And level 2 genuinely has its value because it drives the sense of willpower in your life. And plus, if something really genuinely is not right or just, it makes sense to feel angry about it. It's an energy that can help you to take some sort of action. The problem is when it starts to take over, then it starts to cause problems. So it's important to, just like with the first level, to be able to process how you feel and understand where it's coming from. And only by doing that, you're able to transcend this level. Now let's talk about level 3. Level 3 is the first positive level. And this is when we are the thinker and the rationalist. So the first 2 levels, levels 1 and 2, are very emotional levels. This is the first one when we are more in our head. We think logically about how to set an agenda in place to be able to make things happen, but in a very reasonable, strategic kind of way, not with this fury that level 2 has. And the focus of level 3 is on being able to prioritize a win, but you're not against the idea of other people winning. And this is very different from level 2 energy, which is very I win and you lose. At level 3, you begin to forgive people and you focus on creating compromise and working productively. Now, it may seem like this level is not bad at all, but it has its drawbacks. As I said, every level has its value. So levels 1 and 2 also have their value. I have a lot of clients who get stuck at level 3 because they won't process their emotional state. And what happens is that at level 3, life can feel very tiring because you're always trying to figure things out. You're always trying to make things work and try to fix things. But then it becomes very exhausting because you're not in touch with your emotions. You're suppressing your emotions. And actually, when you're able to process your emotions, when you could get into level 1 and process that vulnerability, and level 2 and process your anger, you free up that energy. And then it actually becomes easier to think logically and rationally without forcing it. So it's important to process the levels before, one step at a time, and then get into level 3. Now, level 3 has its issues as well. It's limited by logical and rational thinking, which is not everything because we also are capable of thinking intuitively as well. A lot of the focus of level 3 is on coping and dealing with things, which could be a really exhausting kind of mindset to have all the time. So let's talk about level 4. Level 4 is when we are in our hearts, but in a different way from levels 1 and 2. It's coming from a place of compassion and love and care, whereas level 3 is more logic and agenda oriented. And at level 4, your focus is on making other people win. and you're willing to sacrifice yourself to a higher cause. So it's not just love for other people, but this genuine desire to take care of this purpose. Level 4 is focused on a genuine desire to do better for society. And interestingly, this is a really energizing state of mind to be, or state of heart to be in. Because when you're at level 3, you're always in your head. You're trying to like figure things out. But at level 4, that compassion, that love could really drive you to do great things. An example is that you might want to have a dog. You start to think about all the pros and cons of having a dog and you get all worked up about that. But once you have a dog, your heart is all in it, and that heart just drives you to take care of that animal. So it could be surprisingly very energizing. And you probably could see what the drawbacks are. It could also be exhausting as well because you're self-sacrificing. You could burn yourself out that way. And there's also limitations to martyrdom because you're so focused on helping others that you're not teaching them how they could fish themselves. And this brings us to level 5. Level 5 is the possibility seeker. At level 5, we're able to see a whole list of opportunities before us, and we seek win-win situations. So whereas level 4 is focused on you win, level 5 is focused on creating wins for everyone that is involved. They're very possibility oriented. And this is a mental energy, just like level 3, but it has a more of an intuitive edge to it. And people at level 5 are genuinely interested when things go wrong in life because you're excited about the prospect of being able to turn that around into something that is positive. I'll give you an example from my own life. So I've been running workshops and meetups for a long time. Each time when I run the group, I would have 15 or 20 people in it. But sometimes I would prepare a lot of material and then only a few people show up because it's raining, or if I'm running it online, there's some sort of technological issue and only very few people show up. And I used to be very disappointed. And sometimes I get into this lower levels of energies when that happens. But then I've been able to teach myself to see that as an opportunity. And I realized over the course of my time of running workshops that when there's few people, then the environment becomes intimate. We could have a very deep discussion. I think, my discussions with my groups are generally pretty deep, but like there's a deep, intimate discussion when there's only a few people involved. So I could see the opportunity in that. So level 5 is about looking for a possibility, looking for opportunity, and being able to speak your truth as well. It's not simply about people pleasing like what level 4 could be. Is about really try to tap into your own voice and truth and be able to speak that out loud. And level 5 has a very exciting energy, and it could also be very energizing too. There's a lightness when you get into level 5 energy because it could be very fun, and it's not an energy that's really serious or heavy at all. Now, level 5 has some of the same issues as level 3. We get really stuck in our heads, and it also could lack emotion as well. And so when you're in this state of mind, you could seem kind of disconnected with others. Now let's talk about level 6. So when level 5 is about trying to make a win, trying to create win-win situations, level 6, it's a very high-level intuitive level where you always see everything that's happening as a win because everything is part of this ongoing journey, ongoing development of humankind and of yourself. And you don't have to try to force to make things happen. You could bear witness to your life. So this is when a lot of spiritual teachers talk about you being kind of like the observer of yourself and a non-judgmental observer where you don't assume that anything is right or wrong categorically, but rather you kind of witness and observe things happen and you can see it all be part of a greater sense of purpose in your life and also the lives of others. So you don't force change, whereas in levels 2 to 5, you try to make some sort of change. You try to do things that are different. Level 6, you're bearing witness and you're letting things happen and letting things process. So obviously there's drawbacks to this because at these higher levels, you're not engaged in a day-to-day life. Every level has its value. So it's not like the higher levels are necessarily better than lower levels in all cases, because you need to be able to engage in the day-to-day world. And that's why levels 3 to 5 are important levels to be able to engage in the day-to-day. And levels 1 and 2 are very important when it comes to being able to process your deep and difficult emotions. Level 6 is a very intuitive level and it sees everything as part of a whole. It breaks down all the boundaries. Now let's get to level 7. Level 7 is a state of absolute passion. In this state, we get outside of the constructs of society. Whereas level 6 thinks about winning still, but in terms of how everyone's winning. At level 7, you see winning and losing as illusions. They're constructs that society has created that humans have made in order to play the game of life. So at level 1, you think about how I lose. Level 2 is I win, you lose. Level 3 is about prioritizing your win as an agenda, but being okay when other people win too. And level 4 is about sacrificing yourself to a greater cause. And level 5 is about creating wins for everybody. Level 6 is about how everybody wins. Level 7 sees winning and losing as illusions and constructs. The category of what's better or worse completely goes away and out the window. So at level 7, you could be creating a great masterpiece through painting. But on the other hand, when you go out to walk the dog, you don't see that as being any different from creating a masterpiece because there's no greater or lesser moment. You're someone who completely lives in a moment. You have passion for every moment of your life. You have intrinsic invested interest in every moment in your life. At level 7, you could completely recreate yourself and you could go into any level consciously because you see the value of every level. You see the value of being able to go to 1 and 2 levels 1 and 2, to be able to process your emotions, or getting into levels 3 to 5 to be more in touch with the world and working within the world and even the constructs that society has created, and also in getting into higher levels of being enlightenment at levels 6 and 7. But at level 7, all these levels have their value and you could choose consciously where you need to go. Now, you don't stay at this level at any long period of time. It's not something that is sustainable. Again, level 7 sees the value, genuinely sees the value of being in the other levels. So what you do to use this model is to coach yourself one level at a time. So whenever I'm in levels 1 and 2, and typically people are in 1 and 2 when they're in a stress response, including myself, what I do is I get into that 1 level state consciously to be able to process my vulnerability. And then I get into level 2 to process my feeling of anger and upset and my fighting energy. And then I get to level 3. But I don't want to bypass a level, going from one level, such as level 2, to a level 5 right away. And when we try to bypass it, what we're doing is that we are resisting. We're trying to resist meeting ourselves where we need to be. We need to be able to clear the emotional energy around a level before going on to the next one. And maybe if you're at level 1, it's sufficient to go up to level 3. And if you're at level 3, it's sufficient to go up to level 5. But sometimes you actually need to go the other way around. As I said, if you're at level 3 and you're getting stuck there, as I mentioned before, maybe what you need to do is actually get in touch more with level 1 and 2. And if you're at the higher levels, level 6 and 7, and you're stepping outside the matrix, you're not relating with the world anymore. So you need to consciously step into a lower level. So I'll give you an example from my own life to drive the point home. I'll go back to the example of me having depression. When I was in depression, I was very much in level 1, a very victim kind of energy, feeling really vulnerable about myself. And I really wanted to force myself out of that state. But I realized I needed to really give myself time to be able to process what I feel. And when I stopped forcing those emotions away, I was able to address it. I was able to process the emotions that I have and the difficulties that I was experiencing. And then I got into level 2, and then I got into level 3, and I thought about rational and logical ways to be able to make my life better and to do things constructively. Something I've learned though is that before I was depressed, I was actually stuck in level 3 energy a lot, trying to figure things out, trying to make things work. And then that started to kind of fall apart. And I realized the lower levels is not necessarily a bad thing, because level 1 was trying to tell me there's something that I need to be able to address. When I'm feeling sadness and I'm not paying attention to it, there's something wrong with that. I need to be able to face how I am feeling. And then what I realized is that after I was depressed, I got into higher levels of thinking. I got more into level 4 and levels 5 and sometimes level 6 and 7 even. And I realized I was able to get into those states because I allowed myself to process my levels 1 and 2 energy and not get stuck in level 3. When I got into the depths, I was able to see more of the heights. So a lot of people who they go through depression afterwards, when they get into their healing journey, the spiritual pathways of the brain start to light up for them, and they start to have higher levels of thinking. But I've always found all the levels to be very useful in my own life. I hope you found this useful. If you did, click like and subscribe. It'll help the channel. And I want to let you know that I've written a new article about how you could keep moving when the way forward is not clear, when you can't see the bigger picture. If you're interested in seeing the article, I have it down in the description box below.